Hello to everyone. Good morning, good afternoon. My name is Anton Fedosiev, and I'm the content strategist at Customer Success Organization. Probably you are used to Michelle Rasmussen and Sean Hubert hosting the series, but this time I'm replacing Michelle. She's on vacation, so let's cheer for her. And today's topic is a process survey, line work, and speed up the site design. Great topic, and we have great experts today. A quick reminder about the format of the meetup. Phil, if you could go to the next slide. So first of all, we may talk a little bit about the future. So please do not make any purchase or renewal decisions based on what we're saying about the future, because the future plans are subject to change. But we will try to be upfront about that. Next thing is important to remember, if we go to the next slide, is that the lines are muted because we want to reduce the background noise. If you have a question, please use your Q&A panel or raise your hand so we can unmute the line, and the recording will be posted after the session, and also you will get an email with the link. So important, since it's live, we're here to talk, right? This is a meetup. This is your opportunity to raise your questions, raise your concerns. So please drop them in the chat, raise your hand, be active, because it's a live session. Next slide, please. Yeah, and this is where we would like to introduce the speakers today, and we'll start from Phil. Phil, can you say a little bit about yourself and your history in the industry and with Autodesk?
Sure, yes, yeah. So my name's Phil Richardson. I've been with Autodesk since summer 2019. I've worked in several sectors in the industry. I started out in multidisciplinary consultants, so design consultants, working as a kind of CAD technician role and working my way up through expertise. After university, flipping onto the manufacturing industry side of things. And then in more recent years, I've been working for a tier 1 contractor in their BIM experts team, going out helping the projects move up through the digital processes and start to move into following the ISO 19650 standard, and move up through the value chain and how to specify and work with BIM properly. I'm based out of the UK for Autodesk.
Excellent. Thank you, Phil. And the next slide. And our second expert in the call today is Ian McGregor, consulting manager from Autodesk. Ian, do you mind saying a couple of words about you, history with Autodesk, and in the industry as well?
Yeah, hi everybody. Yeah, my name is Ian McGregor. I'm also based in the UK. I'm a manager in the same team that Phil is, and with our consulting delivery team based out of the UK. I'm a long-term Autodesker. I've worked in product management, and now with the consulting team for about the last 7 years. My background is I'm a civil engineer. I worked in the design supply chain for a short while after graduation. Having moved into software firms, I work with a variety of software firms over my career, but long term with Autodesk now, and primarily similar kind of focus to Phil now, helping BIM implementations, generally on large infrastructure, highways, railways, airports, that kind of thing.
This is great. Thank you for the introduction, Ian. And you now know a little bit about us, where we are located. So why don't we test the Q&A? And if you don't mind, I'm asking the audience if you could type your name and the location you are connected from. So we'll see how global the audience is, and just drop it in the Q&A. That would be fantastic. And with that, I think that we can move on. Phil, the stage is yours.
Okay, so today we are looking at an example of where you might get survey data in. There's a lot of ways to go and do survey these days. We're concentrating on kind of what you might call traditional survey. So it's points that are coded up and strings that are drawn out, and it's how do you turn that into a 3D model quickly. So why would you use this over something like drone captured or LiDAR survey? And the answer has to be because you need greater accuracy. And so if you were going to map out something like a car park to understand why maybe you're getting ponding, how might you improve drainage, you need to be getting the kind of accuracy you get from point survey. You might also find that this is the kind of data you get back from the small or medium-sized projects, because it just doesn't pay dividends to go out and hire that high-end kind of survey techniques that are used out there to capture things quickly on large projects, large infrastructure projects. If you're working on small or medium-sized projects, even inside the tier one contractors, they're still using a lot of the traditional survey techniques and building models this way. Basic workflow is to bring in your survey data. I'm starting from a point file, a CSV file, on the basis that this then makes your survey tools neutral, because all the tools will deliver a CSV out. There are other ways. You might get a land XML, you might get something that's a native format that you'd know how to convert and bring in. But I'm working in the most neutral way I can today. So bringing in survey data, start to analyze it and work out how to clean it up. Best place to clean it up initially is in that CSV file. And then it's how do you start to process some line work and how do we start to create and update surfaces. And then we're going to start looking for errors in the surface or how to just improve the accuracy of your surface. And then we go into a process of kind of creating this existing condition model that I might hand on to someone else to go and do some proper drainage design to improve this car park, is what we're looking at there. And what can I also do with this survey data to actually also have a model and something ready for drawings at the same time at the end of the process. So with that, we're going to jump into the demo. So here we are. I'm using Civil 3D 2021, but the survey tools haven't been updated in a few editions. So this is backwards compatible to maybe as far back as 2016, in fact, if you're still using those versions. I'm going to go ahead and create a new model from the Civil 3D template. This is so I've got all the styles and things I need in there ready to go. And today we're going to look at the survey tab in the tool space a lot. And we're going to go and create a new local survey database. And we're going to give it a name. In there. Now, when you've created your database, the first thing to do is actually right click on it and come back and go edit the database settings, because it's set up with some defaults. One of the things we need to make sure we do in this modern world of connected data is we need to make sure that any databases, any models, everything knows how it goes together. And the first thing to do with that is make sure you've got your coordination zone, your coordination system set up. So I'm going to come down. I know I'm working in the Great Britain, and it's the British National Grid I'm working on with this survey. This I'd know from the surveyor. They should tell me that basically. There's a lot of other settings in here to be setting up. So if you've got a full kind of like understanding of what else you might be doing with survey data, you can come and have an explore in here in your own time. So with the database setup, I'm going to go ahead and do an import. So if you're used to how importing points or importing land XML data works into the model, it's very, very similar in here. So right click, import survey data, choose my database that I've just set up and move on. Go and I can import several different types of things in here. I can even pull points out of a drawing if that's the way things have been handed to me. I'm working with a point file today. I come and find this. I'm going to just show what the source data for this might look like. in here. Now, the important thing at this point is to make sure that I tell the import process how the columns work in my data file as it comes in. On my file, it said PENZD, and it's comma delimited. You get a little preview down here of things as they're coming in, and you start to see how the descriptions are going to give me more information about the points and what they are. I've got point number, easting, northing, and point level going on in here. Little word of caution in here. I've got PENZD, and I've also got PNEZD. So that would assume that I was going northing, easting, not easting, northing. So be really careful, make sure you understand which way around your columns sit in your data that you're importing. All right, next stage is to create a network. A network in the survey database is just a group. Okay, so I can apply several import processes into one group. I'm going to call this source in here and select that, and it just helps keep everything tidy. And now we're at the actual import options here. So it's here, there's an opportunity to come back and change some things. It's going to tell me where I've pointed to for my point file. And I could be bringing in control points if I knew the control network and I wanted to set that in there. They sit as a kind of special set in there. But I know that I don't have the control points. I've just got the survey handed to me here. Next thing to make sure I got set up is the prefix database. We'll come back and have a look at the prefix later on, but that tells how things, tells the Civil 3D how things go together. I'm going to say don't process the line work at this point. I can come back and do that later. And then the next thing that's important to make sure I've got set correctly is my line work code. So there's two sets of coding going on here that starts to build the survey, build out the points and lines for me in there. And I can, there's other things in here, import in order, give it a name. If I want to change the name, it's actually going to default to my file name for this one. And I'm going to tell it, the last two things I'll make sure that I turned on is insert figure objects and insert survey points at this point for me. So I click finish, it goes through, works on things and brings them in. Right, at this stage, what I actually want to do is go back to the settings and just want to check on my drawing settings, because I've set the coordinate system in the database. I want to make sure I've got the same coordinate system running in my model. That does two things for me. It ensures that when I hand the model over to other people, things are set correctly, but it also means that my database and my model are working harmoniously. If your employer, such as Highways England, have a requirement where you might need to transform data, this is the beginning of the process where you're going to do that. We're not going to go into transforming data today. We're just going to look at how we can process line work and speed up the building of the model. All right, now I've got the points in here. I'm just going to change my scale down to 100. So you'll notice that the points that are created are annotative objects. So they come in nicely. And I've got myself a point group that's been automatically created at the import here. So that if I had points already in, maybe I was going to add to an existing model, I could have different point groups in there and I'd know which points came in from this import. And I can do things like I can select the points to make sure I understand what I've got there in this. Perhaps what I might do at this stage is I'd create a surface. I call it something like a temporary surface for myself, so I know what I've got in there. And I might just go and apply all of the points into the surface just to see what I've got building. And I can do things like I can change my surface style so I can come and see the triangles in here. So I can see how things are building up. And then I can start looking at things in the object viewer. I prefer to use the object viewer rather than trying to flip things around in the actual model itself, because it's a much quicker way of looking at things. I can isolate out some of the things I want to look at. Now, clearly looking at this data here as I put it together, there's clearly something going on here. This is a car park, so I'm not expecting to see any great big ramps in places. So I've obviously got some points at a much higher level. I've also got a point that's down at a much lower level here. So this is a nice quick way just to review what you've got going on, see what's going in there. So the next thing I would go and do is I'd jump back to my survey and back to my import event, and I can come and process the line work. This is something I could have done at the point of the import if I wanted, and I'll show you where that checkbox is again later. All right. So if I just go back and I can change that surface style, make it something that's easier to see the lines as we go. So you can see in here, what we've got is a couple of different lines being tried to be put together going on. I know from my initial site survey, initial site investigation, that I've got a couple of roads, and you can kind of see them coming together, but the lines are clearly not following through. There's a bond that runs down this side of the site, but they haven't surveyed the whole thing. So I might start breaking things out, taking points out that I don't want to do. But in particular, I know that actually I've got this main supermarket building in this space here, and it clearly hasn't linked together. So at this point, I'd start cleaning things up and starting to work with things again, and might even start to remove some of the points out. And I'd do that at the CSV. I'd create a copy of my CSV file, start to work with things. So I've already done that. I'm going to go ahead and create a new model for myself here to import things into again. I'll just go and check my settings. And again, go and make sure that I'm working in the correct coordinate system. And so this time I'm going to come and do another import process. And I'm going to come and pick up a set of points that I've started to process here already. Again, make sure I get the correct format in there. I haven't, that's northing easting. There it is, PENZD. There we go. I'm going to create a new here. I'm going to call this survey 1, so I can separate it out from the source data there. And this time, this is where I get the line work processed as I'm going. Right. And we'll have a look at these prefixes and code sets that are beginning to drive these once I've got this imported. So you see now I've got a few less lines in here to be dealing with when things are all processed, and I've got my main building sorted out. What I did to sort out the main building is I changed the code on the point. The original code was BG for building, and now I've made it BG1. The importance of this is that it still understands that BG is the code, and that's what's driving this as a blue line for myself, versus the code on this point, which is a K. And again, I've got a subset in here for K6, K for curb, BG for building is what I'm looking at here. And you'll notice that where I had the ramps, I've got some smaller buildings in. These are actually shelters for the trolleys to be returned to. Right. So to have a quick look at how I would process things, I've got a little setup down here that isn't quite finished off. I've got these points in here. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to select those points. I'm going to go to edit points. And what this is going to do is bring up a list of points for me. And if I can just grab that and drag it down, make sure I've got all the points I want to be working with there. And on the other screen, if I drag this in, this is the CSV file in a text editor. So what I want to do is I want to go and find these numbers, and I'm going to change the codes on them to their own little K set so that they work without interacting with the other ones. So that's going to get rid of the, it's going to get rid, if I just collapse that, that's going to get rid of this massive link across the site it's doing. And I can also, in the coding, I can make this a complete circle for myself because I know this is a little traffic island. So very quickly, drag that down a bit. Oh, a bit further. Right. So I come and find these numbers. 1146 it is. I'm going to start at 1146. Very simply, what I'm going to do, I'm going to make these K99 because I know I haven't done a 99 set for them yet, and just go through and add that as I go nicely. 48. 48, 49. Thank you. And 57, that's 1157 is my last one there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and save that and minimize that, and I can reduce that. And what I can do very, very simply here now, because we're being driven by a database, I'll just come back and go, just re-import this for me, and I'll just double check that all these things are right. And there we go, my big link across the site is right. Haven't closed it up yet. What I'm going to do here, I'm going to jump into down here on the survey tab in this tool space and show you the prefixes. So I've got a prefix here for my Millennium supermarket. So this is what tells the points what should go together. And quite simply, it's driven by the styles. So all the points that are BT are top of bank or bank top, and BB is bottom of bank as it goes on down. If I want to add a new one in here, I add a line, I click in there, and I could do GU for gullies and come and change it to an appropriate code style. I haven't got anything appropriate for a gully. I'm just going to make it basic in there, and I'd go and change that it would go on to see if I can find, do that for me, the survey site. Pick the right site, pick the right layer for it to all go onto. There it is, survey figures. Right. And it's that simple to add to it. And likewise, the linework codes, much simpler setup here. This just is the coding that tells me what's going on. So now I want to close that little island up. I'm going to go and tell it that it's going to be a close. It's going to go in there, but you can have begin, end, close. And I've used the curves here quite a lot. So you've got begin curve, end curve, and you'll see point on curve. So I've got BC, EC, and OC for those in here.
Phil,
very simply, if you want to change these, you just come and overwrite them in the space here.
Hey, Phil, we've got a question that is probably more appropriate to ask right now before we went too far away. So the question is that you edited everything in CSV file, right? And what's the advantage of doing that in CSV over the point editor?
It means that it's referenced into the database again, so that if I insert the points into a drawing because I want them to be carried forward without the database, if someone accidentally drags the point to another place or edits the point in some way that I don't want them to because it's the original survey, I can just come back to my model and I can draw from that database. I can import that point again and get everything to link together. And when you're doing operations where you want to drive the line work, I find it quicker and easier just to come and look at the whole set of points here rather than working in there. And then the last point about this, at this stage, if I go edit point here, it's a great question, by the way. At this stage, I can't actually come and edit them here because they're points driven by the survey database. So until I insert them into the drawing and they become COGO points rather than survey points, they're not editable to me here. So it's just at this stage, at the very first stage when I'm interacting with the data, I find it easier to edit in the CSV. But you could have done that if you know that you're going to import it and it's just a couple of minor edits. You could process the points at this stage into COGO points and go and edit them there if you want as well. Yeah, that is another way to go. Right, so last edit I'm going to do in the CSV here is for this point here, 1146. So 1146, and I'm just going to put close on the end of that. Let's give that a save. and we just process, just re-import this all again. We go around the merry-go-round again. And other errors coming in for myself. Why did I get that wrong? Sorry, I've edited the wrong point. It's 1157 I want to edit. Bear with me. So what did I say? 1157, because it's the lot, because it's connecting them in order they've been processed in. 157. So I want to put space C on the end of there and re-import.
Yeah, and while it's being imported, we've got just one more contextual question about the line work coding. So the segment codes BCOCC, do they serve as a prefix to the descriptor, like the line work?
Yes, yeah, if I reduce the scale here again a little bit so that we can see the points individually, you can see the point description here. So I've got BC K99 is begin curve for K99, and then I've got OC K99, and then here I've got EC K99C. So that's the way I've processed them. I have to admit, I'm not 100% sure whether it matters to put them in front or behind. This is just the way I've always worked with survey data, is the instructions for the line work for begin curve and end curve goes on the front, the group name, the style name goes in the middle, and then instructions like close goes on the end. I've just always done it that way. So I assume that's where I was taught best practice. Right. Okay, so I'm just gonna check out what I've had going on here. Okay, so this is where I've had GU coming in. What I know actually is I don't want the GU to be processed. So I'm just gonna come back down here, edit my, it's not that one, it's edit these, and I'm gonna go ahead and actually at this stage, I'm gonna delete GU off the line work. And then I'm going to process the line work again. Okay, so GU stands for gully in my world that I brought things in on. Okay, so now I've got the lines in there and everything's looking pretty good. What I could do is I could add them into a surface. What I'm actually going to do, what I might want to do is have a wider area that's brought in. You might have free data available to you like we do in the UK. So I'm going to insert a land XML file that shows it's supposed to be the base mapping for the area. And this is going to show again why you would go out and do a survey of your own rather than just relying on maybe data that's just given to you. So if I go and scoop all of that up and the surface, and we go and look at it in the object viewer, and I flip this up, you can see that my lines are sitting at roughly the same level, but I just don't have the same detail. And that's because I go wireframe, you can see that the number of points I've actually got from my base data that was brought in, my base data that was available at the time, was very few points across the site. So what I would do for this myself is I would take this and I would create another surface and I would call it the survey surface. And in here, I can start adding some lines as curbs, as break lines, to start building my surface up. And I can get my little surface in there. We'll come back and add more later. If I grab this surface now and go and look at this in the object viewer, you can see I'm starting to get things come through based on the points in the survey that have come up. Now, you'll note, depending on how important it is for you to have perfect curves on things, it's going to depend on how tight you need the model. So my ball nose here on my little island isn't perfect. For me, I'm not going to concentrate on refining that, because I know that actually the survey is all about the main car park up here. So I'm going to build a model that has much better detail up here. You might, if you needed to do a better survey down here, you might have needed to add some extra points. This is where if you insert the points as cargo points, drop some extra points in, and then you'd work with point groups maybe to refine these things. Or you could have asked the surveyor, if you knew that this is a condition for yourself, the way the modeling engine works, you might say, okay, on a ball nose like this, I need you to capture 4 or 5 points along the curve to give me good details, please. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do to start adding details, I know the lines I've got are actually the back of the curve here. So I'm going to use a tool from Modify to start adding more detail into the model, more lines I can use as break lines here. What this tool lets me do is it lets me offset horizontally, and it lets me offset in the Z direction at the same time. So initially I'm going to go offset through 0.1 meters. It says pick a line, pick a side, and tell me what the offset is. Initially, it's just going to be a flat offset, so 0 is what I want. And then second time around, I'm going to offset through 0.1, but I'm going to go down. So I'm going to go from there, select the side, and make it minus 0.1 in there. Now, if I go ahead and add those new lines as some new break lines, I can grab those, and I didn't quite get the offset I wanted actually, but I'll look at that in a minute. And when I flip it up and I come and look at things in this area, you can see I'm beginning to get the detail I wanted. Let me go back and do that one again. Let's just go back through a few steps because I didn't get the offset I wanted on that one. Right. Offset through 0.1. Select the side at 0. Okay. Offset at 0.01 is what I meant to do. Select the side and make it minus 0.1. Right, okay, now when I add that as a break line, I can come and look at my surface again here. Turn it up so I can see the triangles. Actually, if I put it into conceptual, it can be easier to see. And you see now I've got the step down for the edge of the curve in there. So very, very quickly, I can start to process my lines into things. I'm going to quickly go around and do this for the others. A couple of smaller islands here just to complete my model. Whoops. Right, I'm going to ignore everything else outside the car park for the purpose of this model now. Right, now we're going to offset that 0.1. Side minus, hang on, what did I do there? Whoops. Offset through 0.01 it should be, so 1 centimeter out, and then minus 10 down. That's what I wanted to see, right. Oh, it's hanging on me. That one's done. that one, that one. A couple of other things, just check them as I go by. And that should be the last one, right. Okay, so again, I just rebuild my surface quickly before I do this. Go and add these now. And select things as I'm going across. And then I've got those two as the last set in there. Now, I have some further problems with my data here. So this shows what feedback you get. Due to the way things are being manipulated, I've got crossing break lines here. We're going to find out if this is a big issue for me. What I tried to do here, where I was sorting out that original mess of lines, was I tried to separate things with point numbers at one point here. So this might be a cautionary tale for people out there to make sure things work. If I had a bit more time, I would have cleaned that up a little bit better and segregated things out a bit better again.
Yeah, Phil, and the important thing here is focusing on the workflow itself and the process and the best practice, how to approach it, right? So we understand that the data is messy. It's not always possible to
absolutely. So what you're seeing here is, I'm not getting perfect lines in this places because things are crossing. It's struggling to work out how it all goes together. But you can see where I haven't got the crossing lines, it's coming together quite nicely. All right. Okay, so because I have got some good data, I'm going to carry on with this and go to where I was going. So the last thing I would do to really start updating a model, so I've got a good existing condition model, because maybe I'm going to pass this on to the drainage experts to work out, is I'd create another surface here, and I'd call this my EGL, existing ground level, for them. And into this one, I'm just going to go and change the properties on the two existing ones so you see what happens. Take those two and make them turn to no display. What did I do with that? Oh, wrong one. I turned the wrong surface off. So I changed that one back to contours and triangles. Right, okay, so into EGL, I'm going to go and paste these two surfaces. In the edits, paste surface. Now it's important you paste them in the correct order because one will override the other. So if I paste this surface first, I get my overall setup in there. And then if I come and paste the survey surface that I've just created, now I can come and view the overall setup in here. So we can see where I've had good detail, where I've managed to get the data good. I'm getting good break lines. This means that it's very easy to start doing some analysis against this for them. The last thing I would do, if this was going to be like a BIM model, I maybe will have a Revit model for the main building. So I'm going to go and add a boundary for this. And it's going to be a height boundary in there, non-destructive. I'm going to choose the line there that represents that. So that now I've got, if I was going to put this together in another viewer in Navisworks or in the in BIM 360, the Revit model would sit there without any interference from this surface. All right, so if I was going to start now wanting to process this into a drawing, what I might do at this stage is change my appearance of the surface to some contours in there. And you might have other styles if you know how to go and change your styles and edit styles and bring in the ones you want, or you might have a template, then it's all driven in the settings here. It's all styles driven. But you can see that I've got the line work in here going on. so that if I had a nice process arrangement in here, then I could start to put this out as a drawing for people that might need it. In the world of BIM and sharing things, then I can actually share the surface out to share with other people. In that context, what I want to do actually is I want to make sure that if anything is changing in here, I would want to make sure it's locked down. So actually, for myself, I would come and I'd export this to a land XML. So on the right click menu here, I've got export to land XML. And you get this nice little dialog box here to select what you want to export out. I'm just going to do the one surface. And under here, I'm going to go call it EGM. And if I just open up, this time I'm going to use a different template. I'm going to use the UK template just because I get a few more styles of the surfaces in here. I'm going to go and bring that land XML back in here. So you see I've got everything carried through, including the point. This can also be useful if you need to share information to other packages, other systems. If you've got a design surface that you want machine control to be driven by, if you've got a requirement for that, then this can be fed into the telemetry for the excavators and diggers and auto planes. So really useful interchange format to know about is land XML. If I come in and zoom back in here, and come and look at the object viewer again, you can come and see the lines in there are coming up nicely. But what I might want to do here again is I might want to come and process my line work into here without the points, so that I've got the lines over the top. So you see by working in the database here, it's made things available to me that were not available. You know, if it would be harder to work otherwise, basically, by having a database sat there, by having other files sat there. I'm just going to come and see if I can turn those to no label. Okay. One little thing, sometimes you find templates have overrides set on them. What you need to do is come and force it here to make it default, and then the styles start driving everything again. So I've got my points in there, and I'm going to go and change my surface, which has come in. It's called EGL. It's all driven there. So different template, different styles available to me in here. This time I can turn it around and we can start to see some other things going on. Next things I'd start to target to tighten this model up. If this area was important, I'd start to go and see why I've got jagged lines going on around here, see what's going on around there. But I know from the style I've used here, these are very tightly packed. So I might go and look at styles in a couple of different ways to see how things are going on here. So that was 0.1 and 0.5. If I go to 1 meter and 5 meter contours, then I can see maybe actually what's looking like issues in places were not. So that is essentially the end of the show. Are there any more questions?
Hi Phil, yeah, just picking up a few. We've got a few experts just making a few comments on the survey format.
Okay.
So maybe you want to make some comments on these as well. So some people are commenting just around setting up the code descriptions internally, setting up standards to enable line work setup and everything. And that seems like a great best practice that we'd recommend, right?
Absolutely, yes, yeah. I would say if you're going outside to a third party to get surveys done, make it a requirement that they feed you what their coding is, or they work to your coding system. And then you need to test that when you get it back in and make sure that they have actually followed the standard that's been defined there. If you are internal, you've got your own survey team. When I worked for the tier 1 contractor, we had an internal standard and we tried to educate everyone. We had our own internal training that we put all the graduates and trainees through on how to run surveying. And part of that was using a standard code set so that we could send different people to different sites and, or, you know, people would move around sites, and we knew we could build models collaboratively. Yeah.
Right. And just following up on formats then, data formats receiving, can you make some comment about the best format to receive your surveys in? Kieran's in the UK and struggling a bit, just getting provided 2D DWG and would rather see the raw survey data so he can process it himself.
Yeah, again, you know, if possible, if you get a chance to influence things at the beginning of the process, you want to talk about requirements for what to be delivered back. Okay, one of the nifty things you can do, if you've got 2D data and it's being given to you as AutoCAD blocks, you can turn the blocks into Kogo point. Yeah, you can raise the blocks to the level of the text and turn them into Kogo points and start to build things that way. But ideally, yeah, I think I would say I want to see things as a CSV or a land XML format to import, because land XML carries the same descriptors that we were seeing in the CSV. CSV is probably your best common base format that comes out of things. But sometimes you might find that the surveyors prefer to work in the proprietary setup. So if they bought Leica, they'll have the Leica suite to work through. And maybe you need to do something as simple as just talk to the surveyor and say, look, I need the 3D points, please, not the 2D. And actually that might remove a step from them. Sometimes they're flattening the data to give it to you.
Right. Kieran makes a further point about receiving GenIO data from the Bentley format. And I don't know whether folk have found that there is actually there's a plugin available. It's a subscription plugin that you can download and install, and so Civil 3D can load GenIO data if you want to do it that way as well.
Yeah.
Okay, another question. Vanessa comments about when you set the projection, do that at the beginning of the project or partway through. She'd always thought it was best practice to do it right at the beginning of the project. Do you want to make any comment on that, Phil?
Absolutely correct. Do it right at the beginning of the project, possibly even set up a project template based on a company standard so that you set it up once and everyone drives it from that template. So I could have, when I first set up my drawing and set the projection I was working to, the grid system I was working to, I could have then gone and saved that as a template for the project. And every time I created a new drawing after that, I'd started from that template. Yeah.
Great. Okay, we're going thick and fast on the questions now. Question back about, in fact, we've had a couple of comments about offsetting the break lines. Yep. Adam commented that he believes there's a way to code a point in the survey file that will automatically create offset survey figures from the original data. I have to confess I'm testing you here because I've already looked it up and there is a way of doing it.
I was going to say there is a way, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. So if you've looked it up, how simple is it?
So it's we've actually got there's an answer on the forum. So if you want to Google into our forums, a survey code figure offset, and it's about putting beginning vertical and horizontal offsets and putting some numbers in there, and then basically saying stop offsetting at the end, and it'll do both. It'll process both figures at the same time.
Yeah. Yep. So you could automate things even further with that. Yep. That's a great tip.
Yeah. And then, so following on from that, there's another comment about why offsetting the break lines to set up the surface, and also feature lines versus survey figures, which is better for surveyors to use.
Why offsetting? It's because in this case, working in a relatively small area, I wanted to see the detail. That 100 millimeters offset probably could have been quite important to the area I was dealing with here. Perhaps if you've got a much larger area with very few details in the middle of it, that little offset maybe doesn't make so much difference. Feature lines, yes, feature lines can be a very important part of modeling, and you can start to enable things like grading off the bottom of feature lines, and do some other more sophisticated things when you're starting to work with your corridors for the design stage as well. So yeah, feature lines could be very useful. Yes, you can turn things into feature lines. Here I was just focusing on building a surface that gave me the existing condition.
So hopefully you can all see my reference there about sending my link back to the forums. Hopefully everybody got that in the Q&A about the offset survey figures. James is commenting as he's both a civil designer and a land surveyor, just not adjusting a surveyor's surface. And he then comments, but of course we all have and haven't done that. So maybe just talk about the process here, Phil, about preserving the original data and yes, how you're managing what you're doing here.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. So I didn't edit the original data. I made a copy of it and corrected things that I needed to. But ideally, yes, actually what you would do is you'd get the surveyor to deliver it to you in perfect working order so that they've put things together that they know go together. And it is definitely far better to get the surveyor to do it because they've been to site, they know what's going on, they've got it in their memory. I here had to do a little bit of Googling and looking at the street views and things just to check out some stuff when I first started working with the data. Yeah. And you know, I intentionally actually started with data that was very messy and would be the kind of thing that I'd expect my junior to do as a first attempt, I think, of his surveying job.
And we enter the bottom of the stack of questions here. Darius has just asked how to join polylines if there are gaps between that you don't want.
Okay, so this is if I've got AutoCAD linework instead of the points creating things, or is this filling in the gaps between points?
Yeah, or maybe maybe he even means closed survey figures. Survey figures aren't closed, or yeah.
Let me jump back to this drawing. So it's all driven by the coding down in here. So my code for close was C, and it knows it's closing because all of these points are K99 now, curve 99. And so it's gone all the way around to this point, and they've gone in order. So from point 1146 to 1157. These points, because it's following the K99 to group them, don't need to necessarily be sequential. You could have gaps in them because they've gone off and picked up a gully or something because they just were being quick and they were there. It's put the K99 in the order that they've come through in, and then that's why it knows that this is the last stretch to put in here. Yeah.
And the point about closing it really is that the line work governs the edges of our triangles, right? Forces the triangulation. So that's why the lines are important. The line work's important for us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or one reason anyway. Okay. Any more questions I've missed? Anton, have I missed anything?
No, I think that with questions were good for now, and this is fantastic. Thank you for addressing all of the questions. Let me quickly show you something that is kind of really important about the next month, since we have 5 more minutes. Let me take the control for a few sec. So can you see my screen right now?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, excellent. So this is the kind of 2 resources. You're probably familiar with them, but I wanted to show them again. So this is the main resource center for customer success organization at Autodesk. This is where we try to collect best practices for some of our key professions that we work with. And everything that we discussed today falls under civil engineering. domain, right? This is where we collect our courses on the key initiatives and project types that you could have in civil engineering, right? And those e-learning courses can be accessed for free using your Autodesk ID, so there is no need to create any new account, so it connects to your existing Autodesk ID. And what we have for meetups, this is today's session, today's webinar. We have one for each key profession, including civil engineering. But civil engineering, the reason why I'm demonstrating the screen, again, how it comes together. And also, the next meetup in November is a special one. It's during Autodesk University, so it's going to be a part of the main program at Autodesk University, November 17th. Please don't miss it. Register for the next months, and we will broadcast from AU. And normally, as you know, Autodesk University is a big conference in Las Vegas. This year, everything is virtual. That's my next call to action. AU is bigger than ever this year, so don't miss it. Don't miss the opportunity to attend this biggest conference that Autodesk provides, and it's free this year as well, so don't miss it. I will drop the links in the chat so you can just click them. But those are two important considerations for the next months that I wanted to share with all of you. Okay, and let's make the final check about the questions, and it will take me a second to post the information in the chat. It's there now, so all the links that I demonstrated now, they're in the chat. Please copy and paste them somewhere so you have them handy. And with that, it looks like we don't have any more questions, right?
Yeah, I'm not seeing any at all.
Yeah, we don't. Then let's thank Phil for the live demonstration. You know that it's always not easy to make a live demo. Thank you so much, Phil. And Ian, thank you so much for handling the Q&A during today's session. And of course, we thank everyone who joined us today for the webinar, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Everybody.